In early spring of 1918, Walter H. Fox left his home in Iowa for the forefronts of battle in Europe. The world had erupted in war, and countries raised guns and militaries against their own neighbors. As the fight continued to rage on, a new invader took advantage of Europe's weakened defenses. A medical epidemic that left hundreds of thousands of people dead in its tracks. The flu. Walter H. Fox was just one of the physicians encouraged to help fight against this growing medical catastrophe. By the winter of 1918, Europe had officially declared crisis. Spanish influenza was just one of the names given to this growing pandemic, as Spain was one of the earliest and highest affected areas. Walter H. Fox often highlights in his letters the conditions of the sick wards and the incapacitated soldiers that took refuge there. However, this was one of the unique letters that he wrote. On occasion, he would write to his daughter Helen of his adventures in day-to-day life. Whenever Walter did this, he would take on a whole new tone of writing that embraced the mystics and mysteries of life in war. Above all, he took in consideration her trepidation of his absence and the possible dangers that awaited him. Walter never spoke directly of these dangers. Instead, he uses rhetoric to weave a world of fantasy. He produced images of flying fish that would glimmer as they leaped out of the dark water surrounding the ship. In one part of the letter, he mentions the way the ocean looks at night and how it appears to be on fire. He says that the men on the ship say phosphorus causes the sensation, but that he doesn't believe them. He claims that it must be some glimmering things in the mermaid's hair. These images are very pathos-laden and help to ease Helen's worries about life on the ship. Walter set Helen's imagination wild with fantasy to distract from the darkness that seemed to loom ahead of him. In Walter's mind, he wanted Helen to be able to look away from the death and disease that had threatened the world and continue to seek the very wonders that made life worth living for, that made the world a brighter place. Walter was concerned with this notion and wanted to brighten up Helen's world again. By appealing to her childlike and whimsical emotions, and also by denying the rigid logos that seemed to dominate during war, Walter was able to rhetorically alleviate Helen's worries. Helen had also given Walter something to remember her by, presumably a stuffed bird. In his letter he promised to return, stating, "When I get back, I'll give him to you." Unfortunately, the bird was sent back unaccompanied by Walter, as he met his demise from pneumonia he had contracted in Serbia. Although Walter was unsuccessful at keeping his promise, he was successful in using his rhetorical savvy to lighten the mood of war and dispatch the fears of his young daughter.